Yeah, he made a living on that, not getting any respect from his kids or his family, and on and on and on. Now that's two-sided there. So this sermon was put together by a guy, I'm going to blame him, another pastor from Brad Johnson, and he goes to Saddleback Church, which is that big church out west, I think. So he came up with some of the stuff, and I will point out some of the controversial stuff he says, which it's mildly controversial, it's not a big deal. But whenever I say something dumb, I'll point out that that's what I've said. So you can blame me. This is a whole series we've been going through about love, which is funny. It's taken us a long time. It's like let's see, I have a list here somewhere. 7 different sermons about love. And I got the one that's respectful, okay. Love is kind was Fred Witt. Love does not envy was the pastor. Love is humble was the pastor. Then I have to do the respectful one so I can learn about respect. Apparently I don't know respect. Love is patient is Brian. Love is forgiving is pastor. Love speaks the truth is pastor again. So we're having 7 different sermons about love. You'd think we could get it after a while, wouldn't you? I mean, love's simple, isn't it? No, love is not simple. I've studied love. A lot of times for the Sunday school lessons, you have to learn about love. C.S. Lewis the Bible talks about 3 different loves. The top one being agape, which is the love that God has for us. And C.S. Lewis wrote a book about the 4 loves. So trying to understand love is controversial. Now, I'm going to say something about love that's positive, and that is that love works. In the end, when we do love properly, it works. And all the forms of love. Romantic love actually works if you do it properly. If you do it properly. And it's funny. It's like people nowadays that will use love to justify anything. Well, I don't love my spouse anymore, but I love this waitress that I met. So if I love her and she loves me, it's got to be right? Correct? And people will justify anything they do as long as love is, or their idea of love is pushing it. But that's not true. But romantic love works great when it works right. And when we talk about romantic love, and this is off the topic, but it's like we use the strangest terms for it. It's like we fall in love. Y'all all know about falling in love? Because that's not a logical process. It's like I'm walking down the road and I see a woman over there. I'm single, okay? I'm a mythical person. Walking down the road, there's a woman over there. She looks at me, I look at her. Oh, a pit opens up and we fall in it and we can't get out. That's like what falling in love is. So it works when it's done right, but I'm just here to tell you, it's not completely rational or logical. You're raised by your family, you love your mom and dad, you grow up, you go meet somebody you don't know very well, and you say, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you a box of candy, I'll give you a card, and I'm going to buy you this piece of metal you put on your finger with a little chip of mineral in it, diamond, girls. And then you're going to cook and clean for me for 60 years. How's that? It's like, and then it works, but somehow it works, right? Does anybody disagree with that? You can tell me, okay. But strangely enough, that's the way we're made. We're kind of made to work with that. And it's a good thing it works, because we wouldn't have kids. The next generation wouldn't exist, would it? And then my wife started watching this newborn. He's like 8 weeks old now. And there's another thing. People love babies. And I don't know why. But anyway, he cries a lot. He changes his diaper like 4 or 5 times a day. She's very tired when I come home. I listen to her day. But women do that all the time. Women love babies. And men love babies when they can talk and work. Let me know. Then I'll start loving them. No, fathers love their baby as soon as they hold them. Strangers like a stranger. No, that's just crying, screaming. I don't know what. But anyway, love works, but it's not completely logical, and it's a good thing. John 3:16. What's that say? Right. Not perish, but have everlasting life. So the start off was that God so loved the world. Why? And Larry told me the answer one time. He said, well, God made the world. And that's true. God made the world. Have you ever made something? Like when we were kids, we used to make snowmen in the yard when it snowed. And then one of our other siblings, I was in a big family. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. They'd come along and knock it down. And you get mad. I worked for 20 minutes on that snowman, and you destroyed it. It was my creation, and I loved it. You see what I'm saying? You don't like it, or when you make something, you're attracted to it. So God does, it still doesn't explain exactly how it works. God created the world. He created all of you. He created all your ancestors. He's going to create all your descendants are His creation, and He loves us. But that doesn't really explain us. And then 1 John 4 talks about the whole thing about love, and it says, we love God because He first loved us, right? So since God loved us, we have to love Him. Now, that's almost logical, sort of, but, and there's nothing bad about love. Love works. It's what puts everything together. And there's a few verses in the Bible that even says God is love. And that's true. It's almost an oversimplification that God is love. In other words, all love, God is in all love, if it's proper love. God's behind it. He's the author of it. It all works. So love's a big topic. We're doing 7 different sermons on it to try and work our way through it. Love is respectful. So this guy was he came up with his own definition of respect. He said, I didn't want to go to the dictionary and look up respect. So I did something that you do when you're studying something. Every word comes from somewhere. So respect has root words that came from the pack. The root word of respect is spicere. It's Latin, okay? That's an old dead language that only certain people study. Anyway, spicere, and then it's spicere. So these are glasses, but what's an old word for these glasses? Spectacles. Don't make a spectacle out of yourself. Spectacles. Okay, spicere means to look at. It's a Latin word for to look at. And means to go back. So when you respect somebody, you go back and look at them. You take the time to evaluate them. That's what respect is. Okay? Does that make any sense? And that's where it comes from. So, if you've got your little sheets, everybody, about love, we have this innate desire to be loved. We have an innate desire, all of you don't realize it, you have an innate desire to be respected. You carry that with you wherever you go. And you can't help it. I'm going to preach this sermon, and if you all come up to me later and you say, Bill, your sermon stunk, I'll be like, oh no. If you come up to me and 10 people pat me on the back and say, I really like that sermon, boy, I will feel, my head will get this big. You see, because we all have a desire for respect and love. Love and respect are tied together. We need it, and we also want to give it. We have a desire to give love and respect to each other. His definition is, respect is showing value and honor to others by our actions. So I pretty much agree with it. There's a vernacular term, so-and-so really dissed me today. Dissed. What does that mean? D-I-S-S. Dissed. Oh, Mandy, be quiet. Let the rest of the kids get one. Yes, disrespected. And it's shortened it up to dissed. Well, in fact, people start fights over that. Are you dissing me? You know, they dissed me, so I punched them in the nose, you know, which makes a lot of sense. But anyway, we all desire respect. We all desire honor from, or at least the chance to be respected from other people. He also breaks this down. He says, we have that innate desire. So we are carrying, he's saying like they're road signs. We have them on our neck. We're carrying this sign around, and it's our body language and our attitudes of things that we want from other people. Human beings want interactions with other people, and love is part of that. We want love interactions with other people. So he's talking about, you've got like 4 signs. Nope. Yeah, I'm there. Maybe I just need to turn. Okay. All right. Anyway, Larry the Cable Guy talked about signs. And I think it was a sign you put on your forehead that said you were dumb or something like that. Wasn't that it? Larry should know. You don't remember? Okay. Great. He'd say, here's your sign, right? And he was a sign to put on your forehead that says you're dumb. Anyway, that's not this. These are signs we ask. Okay, am I there? Okay, I'm good. So anyway, it's important that we have respect for other people, that we care about them. This is one of the controversial things he brings up. He said, we have friends, that some of our friends respect us and some don't. He said, how many of you have a dog or had a dog? You ever had a dog? I'm sure you've had a dog. Whenever you came home, how did that dog behave? He's wagging. We've got 2 dogs now. I come home and you'd think it was the 4th of July celebration because I walked in the door. You know, they're so happy to see me. In other words, they respect me. They care about me. They love me. They want to see me. And so he says a dog is your good friends, your good family, and cats are now this is Brad Johnson. You send him an email. Anyway, he's the one that says cats are your bad friends. And dogs have this idea that you love me, you feed me, you take care of me, you do all these things, you must be a god. And the cats say, you love me, you feed me, you take care of me, you do all these things for me, I must be a god. So that's his feeling about good friends and bad friends. I'm sure you've had friends that maybe fell on both sides, whatever. Now that was almost like that was made by Pastor. But anyway, it's Brad Johnson, it's not Pastor. So anyway, the first sign of respect is stop talking and listen to me. In Titus it says, remember, 2 Corinthians 7:15, remember the way you listened to him and welcomed him with much respect and deep concern. See, right there, if you don't have time to listen to someone, then what's that telling them? They're not important, right? That's the first thing that men have to learn when they get married. Right, Fred? Is when they come home and their wife says, now, I've been teasing my wife the last month or so. Somehow it just hit me. There are 4 words she says to me that I hate. So I've been saying them to her when I come home. We have to talk. And all you guys, nothing ever good comes from this, does it, guys? Whenever you have to talk, right? And you don't know what it is. It could be anything, you know. Maybe anything could happen. Am I getting? Best laid plans of mice and men. Okay, so we have to talk. And sometimes your boss will say, we have to talk, you know? And it's like, it can be good, it can be bad. It's not always bad. But we have to communicate with somebody if we care, if we respect them. When they want to talk to us, we have to talk to them. And there are times like when we don't have time to talk, you know? And it's hurtful to someone. And sometimes if you're really busy, maybe you can say, well, I can't do it right this second. I'll do it later. Can we get together later, you know? But oftentimes people will blow each other off in a way, you know, I just don't have time. I just don't have time. So it's important to listen, especially if you're married. That's going to make things work right. You have to have time to talk. You're saying when you don't give people respect, you're saying, I don't have time for you. You're not important. I have other things to do. It's just, that's the way it is. Now, if you look on your sheet, it says, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus to come to his house for a meal. Jesus accepted and came and sat down to eat. A certain immoral woman heard he was there and brought a beautiful jar filled with expensive perfume. And you've all heard this story. She knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Tears fell on his feet. She wiped them off with her hair. And she kept kissing his feet and put perfume on them. Then the Pharisee, who was the host, saw what was happening and who the woman was, and he said to himself, this proves that Jesus is not a prophet. If God had really sent him, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. Now, the Pharisee was correct. The woman was a sinner. What he didn't know was that Jesus was respecting her. He was looking at her, and through the Holy Spirit, he could see what was going on with her. Why was she upset? And he saw that she had value. You see, that's the thing that people in the world, we value each other, we judge each other in levels, you know. Well, there's important people and there's unimportant people. And the Pharisee looked at her and felt that she was unimportant because she was because of her history. But he didn't, no one, when we judge people, we think we understand them. We don't know anyone's true history when we look at them. Jesus did. He looked at her and felt compassion for her because there are reasons why she was who she was. And he had mercy on her, you know. Jesus, in fact, when you look at Jesus in his lineage, you go back in Jesus' lineage, and one of his ancestors was Rahab. She was his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, you know. So who was Rahab? Anybody know? She was a prostitute in Jericho, I think, or whatever, the town where the walls fell down. So, and she was a Canaanite. She was an outsider. She was a prostitute, and yet she was Jesus' ancestor. So Jesus knew that, you know. But God finds value in everybody. And if we don't find value in other people, then we're disrespecting them. So we have to stop. We have to take the time. We have to listen. Now, when you're a teacher or a preacher, you do a lot of talking, which is a skill. You have to develop the ability to talk. Do you need to develop an ability to listen? The answer is yes. My wife has been training me for the last 30 years, and I'm getting a lot better at it, and my ears are getting bigger. But it's two sides of a coin. You have to become a good communicator to deal with all the people in the world that you love, but you also have to be a good listener. And there are times when listening is what you've got to do. Men have this problem where their wives will, I think Brian Brown touched on this once. His wife wanted him to listen. He says, is this a conversation where you want a solution or you just want me to listen? And it was just listen. Okay, shut up and listen. Because it's not that women don't want a solution at all. They want to find a way to deal with the solution or with the problem. And sometimes women sometimes want a solution where nobody gets hurt, right? Where everybody's happy. And sometimes in life, you have to work out solutions that are solutions. And somebody gets their feelings hurt or is not happy with the solution, but that's kind of the way it is at times. There are some times where and that's some of the difficult things where you want wisdom from God. You've got to really look for it. You got to pray about it. Sometimes these things are not easy. So anyway, you need to develop your ability to listen. And the second sign is keep your promises. Have you ever had somebody promise something to you and they didn't come through? Obviously, right, all of us. Have you ever made a promise that you didn't fulfill? Sometimes you can make a promise to someone kind of in haste, or you set a day to do something or something, and things come up and the promise, you can't do it. So when you can't fulfill a promise, you need to figure a way out to rectify that problem. You can't just blow it off. And it's also the same thing seems to occur. If the person we made the promise to is really important, we're concerned about it. If the person that we made the promise to is not an important person to us, we're like, it's just Bill mowing, I don't care. Where is Bill? He's hiding on me. Okay. But anyway, it's important to keep promises. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't let your mouth overload your shoulders. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Plan things well. A guy, there was a guy named Philip Gray, and I remember reading his book. He wrote a book, and it apparently was a long time ago. I was thinking it was 15 years ago. It was 30 years ago. He wrote a book that was basically said, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Anybody remember hearing that? That seems familiar to you. And what he said was that, it's really simple, men are different than women. Okay? What a surprise. But men deal with love differently and than women do. Men want the respect form of love, while women want love. Women want their husband to love them. They want their children to love them. Men would rather have respect than have no respect. And they would rather have respect just by itself with no love rather than not have respect. Respect is very important to women. And I think women in the end want respect too. They want respect for what they do. Anybody who raises kids, you want your kids to respect you in the form that I do a lot of things for you. You need to at least give me some validation that you understand I work hard for you. And there's nothing better than raising your own kids to make you appreciate your parents, right? You look back and you think, wow, my parents were saints to put up with me. Okay. When you break a promise to someone, it's disrespectful. When you make a promise to a child, the child believes you, at least the first few times, right? Children believe when they're told they're going to, I'll take you to Kings Island in a month, and then you don't do it. They remember that. Does God ever break his promises to us? No. Do we ever break our promises to God? Oftentimes. And it's disrespectful. And God, the problem with God is, you see, There's verses in the Bible that says, fear the Lord your God. Like King James will say, fear the Lord your God. And in the next version, the NIV will say, respect the Lord your God. So there's this thing about when we say fear, we mean remember what's going to happen if you don't do what you're supposed to do. That's what respect is. We respect somebody who we know is powerful. And in a way, that fear is there too. So if fear is respect and love is respect, it's almost like, is love fear? You know, there's an element of that. We want to have a powerful God. And we have a powerful God. And the problem is he's going to be our judge in the future. So we have to respect him. And if we mistreat others, you remember the story about the servant who God forgave a bunch of debt to this servant? The servant went right out that same day and had somebody who owed him $10, had him thrown in jail. And then the king said, okay, bring you back in here. Now I'm going to throw you back in jail because I have to treat you the way you treated him. And we have to realize that. If we don't respect other people, God won't respect us. So the third sign is, the second was keep your promises. The third sign is yield your rights and serve others. Now there's this awful connotation we have with serve. Does anybody want to be a servant? We don't have a natural inclination to be a servant. And yet, when you stop and think about it, marriage is a form of servitude. And now I'm not talking about either just one side. In marriage, a husband goes to work. He earns money. He works hard. He protects the family. It's all service and protection. And the wife does all sorts of things, many, many things. She cooks the food. She washes the clothes. She keeps the house. She does all those things and that are important. And yet that's one reason why things work, because we're willing to serve. And you don't need a brass band all the time to say how great you are. To be in charge is one thing, to serve is another, and they balance each other out. So we have to yield our rights and serve others and serve God. If you're not willing to serve, then God doesn't need you, okay? That's why you're here. I mean, you're serving God. Paul and many of the other disciples said, I'm a servant of God. And he sent them out, and then they served the people. When Jesus took the water and went around and wrapped the cloak around his waist and washed everybody's feet, that was the lowest job anybody had. And Jesus did that. We do that. We commemorate that with foot washing. And Jesus was showing, if I can be your servant, then you can serve others too. You have to have a servant's heart. And you're not looking for a praise and honor when you serve other people. I think women exemplify it really well, in that women will work and work and work, and it's a lot of strain and stress on a woman's body to bear the children and have the family and raise them. And women have a natural inclination to be a good servant. Men can do it too, but I think women have that servitude thing. Like when you raise your kids, you'll love that kid and take care of him and everything, and that kid will never like I said, he'll never really appreciate all the things you did to him or for him until they raise their own kids, and they'll come back. My kids have come back and apologized to me and said, I just want to apologize, because my kids are horrible sometimes. Then I look back and I think about the way I behaved, and he says, now I understand now. And I have to say, my own self, I remember I came back, I apologized to my parents a few times about all the work they did to raise us and how little we respected them for it. So being a servant and serving God, it involves, like when you tithe, you're serving God.
You don't need a pat on the back from me or anyone else when you serve God. God sees what you're doing. You're not trying to please anybody else. Like, don't be like Ananias and Sapphira and do something and want to be praised for it. You have to serve God, and God will see it, and He'll remember it. You don't have to worry about getting paid back for all the service you do. It'll happen. The Lord Almighty says, I'm your Father and Master, but where are the honor and respect I deserve? And He's talking about how there were some people who were bringing offerings, like they'd bring an offering that wasn't good. Like they'd go to get a lamb to be sacrificed, and it'd be a sick one, It's like when we do things for God, we do like a half-baked effort at it or something like that. And then we run off, and we don't give God our best. That's what this is talking about. All right, the fourth sign is slow down. Take time to see others like God does. Do you actually take time to look at people and try and understand them? And do you care? When Jesus looked at the immoral woman, He saw into her and saw who she was, and could tell that she was repentant. She was sorry for the way she'd lived her life. Do we try to get along with each other as much as we can? Do we forgive each other? Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody will make a wrong turn every now and then, say or do something they didn't mean. A lot of God's servants were imperfect. If you're looking for a servant to be imperfect, you're expecting too much. Our pastor isn't perfect. He's a human being. I'm not perfect. God called Moses. Moses didn't want to serve God. He stuttered. He couldn't speak well in front of people. He was worried to death about that. Moses was one of the greatest leaders that Israel had. He actually began the nation of Israel. David was a good servant, but everybody looked at him and said, "You're too small to do this. You're too young." He was like 17 or something, and he was a small guy. He wasn't a big guy. He was going to go out and fight Goliath. How big was Goliath? He was huge. He was probably 7 or 8 feet tall at least, a massive giant, and David went out and fought him without any armor. But would anybody have picked him out? No. Rahab was a prostitute and a foreigner. She got included in David's lineage. Everybody else in Jericho was put to death, and her family lived. God wanted Abraham to serve him. Mandy talked about that. Abraham was 99 years old, and he was supposed to, and Sarai was 89. He said, "You're going to have some kids. You're going to have a kid." Okay, that's ridiculous, isn't it? Right? But God looked at them and saw possibilities. So with God, all things are possible. You might even get somebody to come up here and preach a sermon who hasn't preached sermons before, but they might do a good job. Who knows? Peter, the Apostle Peter, was one of the greatest disciples, yet he was what you'd call a hot mess. I mean, he never thought about anything before he said it. He was impulsive, and he said the wrong thing. Have you ever had anybody who's a friend of yours who did that occasionally? Said, maybe it's you, maybe it's me, who says the wrong thing at the wrong time. That's Peter. And yet, God made him one of his best disciples, one of his best apostles. He was great. So when we look at other people around us, we have to realize that Sometimes there's a diamond in the rough. You can look at it, just looks like a rock, but you crack it open, oh, there's a diamond there. And God can see it. God has X-ray vision. And when you work for God, God will give you a little bit of that too. You'll be able to look at other people and say, oh, maybe you have possibility, you know? Maybe there's something you can do. This is a funny thing, you know? So, did we hit them all? We got all the signs? Yes, we did. Be humble and gentle, be patient with each other, making allowances for each other's faults because of your love. Get along with each other, don't be stuck up, make friends make friends with nobodies. Don't be the great somebody. Before you talk about a log, a speck in someone else's eye, get the plank out of your eye. You see what I'm saying? We need to be patient with each other and try and live like Christ desires us to live. And remember that we're all part of the same family, and that sometimes it's a little difficult to figure out exactly what you're going to do, but when you trust God, He has a plan for each and every one of us. He'll guide us through it. He'll show us what to do. No matter how unimportant you think or how imperfect, you know. You look at people that, like the woman who was washing his feet and stuff. She probably got saved and went on and became a Christian and lived a great life. It's hard to say. There's nothing, and Paul was a murderer. He killed Christians. And yet, Jesus turned him around and made him a powerful weapon for the church. And He can do that with anyone. Any of you and anybody you know might become a great Christian. You don't know. And that's the exciting thing about God, is that He can take a sow's ear and make it into a silk purse. He can even do some things to fix me sometimes. All right. If you see my wife after service, tell her I didn't say anything bad about her. Much, I suppose. All right.